what the fat acceptance community doesn't tell you about.
You are worthy, you are deserving, and you have a purpose in life.
I want to take the weight off the table associated with binge eating disorder, compulsive overeating, disordered eating, and just talk about my last binge and my mental health coming up to that last binge. Because I cycled in and out of eating disorder since the age of 5, and binge eating did not take complete hold until I was 19 when I found out I was pregnant with my first child. Binging lasted from 19 to the age of 28. Being pregnant gave me an excuse to eat and gave me an excuse to do whatever I wanted with food. And it literally took over my life. Every night I prayed to God that I would die. And then in the morning when I woke up, I cried because God allowed me to live another day. I'm sorry. And I knew the binge cycle was just going to continue. My whole world was wrapped up in when my next binge was going to be. I had 3 children by the time I was 28. My oldest was 7, and my youngest was 2 months old during when I had my last binge. I've never talked about it publicly, so this is the first time. So please bear with me because this video is not being edited. My last binge was on June 4th, 1996. My middle son was 4 at the time. He was critically and chronically ill, and he was given a 1% survival rate. At that time, he had just spent 9 months in the hospital. I found out I was pregnant. He went in the hospital. He came home the day before I gave birth to my daughter. And then for 2 months, he was in and out of the hospital, cycling in and out of the hospital until his body just started to shut down. He lived with chest tube, TPN, a Broviac, a PICC line. He was on triple IV antibiotics. He was on oxygen. And this is how I lived every day for 4 years, whether he was in the hospital or whether he was at home. And food helped me deal with the pain he was feeling. It helped me do what I needed to do. Even though I caused him pain, I knew I needed to do it so that he wouldn't get sicker. I felt worthless and helpless as a mother because I couldn't be home for my other 2. I didn't get the bond with my newborn. And I couldn't save my son. So food was the only thing I had that numbed everything around me. During his hospital stay, this was my last binge, which was June 4th, like I said. My husband and I were tag teaming it. We were both in his room. We slept there. We didn't leave the hospital. But if we left the room, I would leave and come back, and then he would leave and come back. And we just kept getting bad news, and all I wanted to do was binge. So I left the room, and I was sitting in the bathroom stall on his floor, binging on, I think I had a dozen donuts, and I know I had a dozen donuts, so I can't tell you what else I had. And I heard code blue, being called to his room. And I wasn't there for him. I wasn't there when he coded. And I walked into the room while they were defibrillating him. And I prayed to God, and I told God that if he survived, I would never binge again. I kept my word because I never binged after that. Eating turned into a control of what I put in my body. Food became my enemy. I feared food of any kind, which led me down an even darker path of destruction, anorexia. I had a heart attack. I almost died. But I couldn't grasp my way out. I couldn't find a rope to pull me up. Thankfully, I found a team who helped me save my life. I will probably be in treatment for the rest of my life. I have destroyed my GI tract, and that's something that when you're a binge eater, bulimia, anorexia, especially for as long as I was, it absolutely destroyed my GI tract. So eating is very hard. It's very difficult for me. What the fat acceptance community will not tell you is about the isolation and the depression, suicidal ideation, the damage that the disordered eating causes to the body. Daily living is basically in your home because you can't function. Now, like, I had to relearn how to eat. And I literally now eat to live. And that's a struggle every day. And it's a struggle I will have for the rest of my life because of what I've done to my body. Alan Roberts, he has been instrumental in helping me decipher rational fear of eating from a medical standpoint versus the irrational fear of negative thoughts that I still tell myself on a daily basis. And the reality that the eating disorder is still sitting here, and with medical issues that I have, they don't jive, they don't mix together. And I've never spoken to Alan Roberts. I've just watched all his videos, and he speaks the truth. And it's a hard truth that is needed to be said. And for the fat acceptance community to have his page deleted just shows you how much in denial they are of the reality of what they are doing to themselves. They are literally killing themselves and saying that it's okay. They're saying that binge eating disorder, compulsive overeating, oh, do whatever you want, you only live one life. No, you live a full life. You die once. And dying is in their future because, well, dying obviously is in everybody's future, but eating disorders kill. Disordered eating kills. Obesity kills. Being underweight kills. And that's a reality that they don't want to see. It's affecting the eating disorder community a lot. It did affect me, being called fat phobic, being called thin privileged, being bullied because I am thin. I chose to save my life, and I'm still fighting for my life. And that's the thing that they won't understand until they walk that path. And when they're dying slowly because of what they're doing to themselves. I had a kid, an adolescent, who is struggling with anorexia, and she's pretty underweight. I don't work with adolescents alone. I work with their team. I am not a food expert. I'm an addiction specialist. I do behavior modification. So I work with a team of people for adolescents, and I just help them reach their goals. I do meal support. And I keep them held accountable for what they're doing. And I had this young girl who's still pretty much underweight ask me why her weight is important and why she has to gain weight if somebody who is obese and morbidly obese can be non-compliant with their doctors and not accept that they have a problem. And the fact is, they're not going to accept it. And the people I work with accept, the kids that I work with do accept that they have a problem and that they need help. And that they do have to lose or gain weight. That happens with behavior modification. You either lose or you gain the weight from stopping binging or relearning how to eat. I have a hard time with the fat acceptance community because they tell people to not comply with their doctors. They tell people to walk out if their weight is brought up. And I get that if you go in for strep throat, regardless of your size, you should be treated for strep throat and your weight should not be brought up at that appointment. But doctors have an ethical duty to warn you about what your eating disorder behaviors or your disordered eating behaviors can cause. And obesity is one of those symptoms of disordered eating. But now we have people who are afraid to go to their doctors. We have people who will not discuss their eating habits with a doctor because the fat acceptance community told them they didn't have to. So it's making it harder for people to seek treatment. It's already hard enough with the weight criteria now with getting treatment, and anorexia, bulimia, binge eating comes in all sizes. And I am advocating for the weight to be removed from the DSM-5 because people who are not 75% body weight no longer is accepted into an inpatient facility. And basically you're dying at that point. I think my lowest was 65% body weight, and I was dying. So now they're pushing the limit. And so I understand where weight stigma is an issue, but fat acceptance and accepting obesity is accepting death. And that's okay if you're not harming somebody else. If you want to harm yourself, go for it. But when you're affecting entire communities, it's a problem. I'm sorry, I didn't want to make this long. I just wanted to end this and saying that my children are now 31. My son is 28. He is doing amazing. He'll never eat normally. He's fed through a tube. He had his stomach removed. He deals with other issues, but he is intelligent and creative and a caring and amazing young man. And my daughter is 24. Just got engaged. She's getting married in a couple of years, so we're starting to plan that, and I'm a first-time grandmom. And that's what I live for. We've learned to live in the day and take each day as it comes and deal with what we can control. what I learned in recovery is that sometimes you have to give up control in order to regain control. And that's what I live by. I just want to thank everybody for listening, and I will see you in my next video.